Hello from the Kennedy household in Eastchester, New York. I'm Sam Reich, and I'm here as the moderator for the 4th presidential debate. I will be asking the candidates questions on topics such as the economy, healthcare, foreign policy, and other issues. Only my team knows of the questions. Neither do the candidates nor the audience know of them. President Barack Obama won the coin toss, so he will be answering the first question. Both candidates have no more than 1 minute to answer. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Governor Mitt Romney and President Barack Obama. Welcome, gentlemen. Now, the first question. What would you do to improve employment rates here in the United States?
Well, the first thing and the most important thing is that we have to create jobs here in America. Outsourcing jobs to other countries hurts our economy. It hurts our economy. We need to eliminate tax breaks for companies that ship jobs overseas, and we need to provide incentives for companies that make jobs here. We also need to train our workforce for these jobs so that they are prepared and will be ready to do the jobs that we are going to provide for them. Over the course of my 4 years, I have added 5.2 million private sector jobs and almost 500,000 manufacturing jobs. Manufacturing jobs are very important. And for the last 31 months, we've had job growth. So we need to continue on the path that we're going. We need to make sure that we provide more jobs here in America and outsource jobs less.
Thank you, Mr. President. With Obama's plan, it has done little for the unemployment rate. Unemployment is still here. It still exists. It is not completely gone. With my 5-point plan, we will get out of that unemployment loophole. The first point is North American energy independence. We will go to Latin America and get resources from there, rather than China, overseas. Second is to grow trade internationally, especially in Latin America, which will help our relations with those countries and domestic relations. Third is enforcing training programs that puts families first. With Obama's plan, families are not put first. Rather, they are put aside, they are put second, and they have nowhere to go if they are unemployed. The fourth is a balanced budget for entrepreneurs and for those who have small businesses. In order to keep a balanced budget, we must cut little taxes. Rather, you must keep them, enforce them, in order to prevent debt. And the last and the fifth point of my plan is to champion small businesses and to encourage them to keep running. Our economy is run by small businesses, and I hope to continue that drive that our nation has had for so many years.
Thank you. Now, Governor Romney, you will be answering first this time. What will you do to make college education more affordable?
As my time being governor of Massachusetts, I enforced a law that allows students in the top percentage of their classes to earn a free college education to any Massachusetts state college. No loans, no debt, nothing. Their families were stress-free and did not worry whether they had to transfer their students or make their children drop out of school because they could not afford it. Also, with no debt came no worry. My state was #1 in English and math, both 4th and 8th graders. With that status, I hope to keep the motivation that drove them to #1 and maintain the #1 status. With free college education in my state, through hard work, I believe that through affordability, accommodation, and flexibility, that education will indeed be more accessible and more affordable for the nation.
President Obama.
The first thing that I will say is that federal student loan interest rates are too high. They're too high, and that when students come out of college, they either don't have jobs or they don't have jobs that pay enough to pay off their student loans. So what we need to do is cap student loan repayments at 10% of their income. we must also provide more Pell Grants to colleges, and this will allow students to afford college across the board. We also must make sure that our teachers are able to teach the skills that are required for the jobs of the future. But the most important thing is that when students come out of college and they don't have crippling student loans to loom over their head, and that they have jobs that they're prepared to do available to them.
Next question. What are your stances on healthcare? How can you provide America with an accessible healthcare plan?
Well, currently, my Affordable Health Care Act is holding insurance companies accountable, and it no longer allows insurance companies to drop one of their clients when they get sick or when they suddenly encounter an illness. This was a terrible flaw in the insurance industry, because why is it that we would lose our insurance coverage right when we need it most? I've also started to close the donut hole, which has allowed for many years insurance companies to get away with not contributing to medicine for many American citizens. I've also expanded free preventative health care services, which in and of itself makes healthcare more affordable, because if you catch an illness or a disease before it gets to its later stages, you will not need as great of care. So what we need to do is stay the course that we're currently going. We need to make healthcare more affordable, and we need to make sure that insurance companies play on a fair field and that they don't get to bail out of their commitments right when their clients need them most.
Continuing on Obama's Affordable Health Care Act. Obamacare, as it is also called, has done absolutely nothing for those still in need. People are still in need. People still have no insurance. People also cannot get services that are necessary for their livelihood. I believe that we should keep Medicaid. It is more efficient, more affordable, and less debt. If you give people free health care, there will still be debt. The debt will not go away. Although insurance companies will have to deal with their clients, that is the way our insurance healthcare system runs in this country. Through Obamacare, we will still be stuck in the donut hole in which he was trying to get out of. Through Medicaid, with more efficiency, with more affordability, and with greater accessibility, we will come out of that financial loophole. And also, without spending money on other things, other unnecessary necessities, we will get out of our own insurance healthcare system loophole in which Obama has dragged us into. Therefore, I believe in no Obamacare.
What will you do to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear capability? Governor Romney?
Yes. I believe that through Iran accessing nuclear weapons, they are a threat. They are a threat to us, our allies, and the rest of the world, ally or enemy. In 1979, we established a crippled relation with Iran through the capturing that they had on American citizens in the American embassy. By giving crippling sanctions, we must enforce them. We must sanction Iran in order to prevent them from even giving out nuclear weapons and carrying out nuclear weapons and their destruction on others. Through the sanctions, all nuclear accessibility will be gone. The only thing we need to do with the sanctions is to tighten them. Tighten them enforce them for the good of Americans, the good of our allies, and the good of the rest of the world.
President Obama.
The first thing I will say is that Iran having nuclear capabilities is unacceptable. We cannot allow that to happen. It would be a threat to Israel, it would be a threat to our country, it would be a threat to the entire world. In doing this, or how we do this, is we've put in place sanctions, some of the most crippling sanctions in the history of the world, through working with our allies, through working with nations, including Russia and China, to cripple their economy. Their economy is in shambles. We're open to diplomatic solutions, but ultimately they will have to yield their nuclear program, because we will not allow them to have a nuclear program. The clock is ticking. We are very much aware of when they will reach the point where we can no longer stop them. And we will not let them reach that point. If we ever come close to that point, I, as president, will take any measures necessary to prevent Iran from gaining nuclear capability.
Thank you. Now, President Obama, how will you reduce our dependency on foreign oil?
Well, America must become energy independent. We must reduce our reliance on oil in general. We must turn to alternative energy sources such as solar, wind, and biofuel. And we must provide new jobs in these new, in producing these new energy sources. And we must train our workforce for these new jobs. Because we cannot rely on foreign oil. We have to bring jobs to America. We have to bring energy independence to America. And that will be one of the major goals of my next term as president.
Romney.
The only way to prevent foreign dependency, or dependency on foreign oil, excuse my words, is to source in our own nation, with our own oil, and several other outlets that are much more affordable and much more accessible than the Middle East. In Alaska, we have plenty of oil. We have oil that is much more accessible and especially less expensive than in the Middle East. In the Middle East, through our dependency on oil there, our relationship with those nations has crippled. They've been crippled. They're done. Now, we've gained back some in the Middle East, although it is progressive. Through depending by ourselves, through relying on ourselves for oil, I believe that we will build our own success, rather than relying on countries that have not given anything to us in return, that have not provided us with anything but terror, war, unhappiness, and insecurity for our people, for our nations, for other nations, and for the world.
The candidates' concluding statements. Governor Romney.
Thank you, Ms. Reich. If elected president, I promise the American people that we will once again be a world power. Our nation has faced great financial debt, instability, and unemployment since the beginning of 2009 and before. Within the 4 years of Mr. Obama's presidency, unemployment has decreased, but very little. It is still here, it is still present, and it still affects families today. People are still looking for jobs. Students want further education. Graduates want jobs. And families want security for insurance and for their children. I promise that as president, I will make sure that every student receives a proper education. I promise I will provide all Americans with insurance through Medicaid, especially for those in great financial debt in tumultuous financial situations. Medicaid is efficient, affordable, and accessible. The Affordable Health Care Act does not cover everything on the spectrum in terms of health care and insurance. I promise that Medicaid will dig you out of that financial loophole. It will dig you out of debt personally. Through my 5-point plan, I promise that unemployment will decrease. I promise that there will be jobs out there for those millions of Americans without one. In terms of foreign policy, I will make sure that the troops in Afghanistan are out by the end of 2014. I don't know when, because if the leaders of our enemy countries know exactly when we release the troops, they will attack us at our most vulnerable moment. Oil will be resourced here, not in the Middle East, so that costs will go down and that we do not owe the Middle East a thing. We will better our relationships with the Middle East, and although it may be slow, it will be done. I promise as president, you will receive honesty, respect, and what you deserve, true security in a world's power. Thank you.
Mr. President?
4 years ago, our country was dipping into the worst economic recession, one of the worst economic recessions in its history. Unemployment was at one of its highest rates in our nation's history. We were involved in 2 wars in the Middle East, and Osama bin Laden was still alive. Now, 4 years later, we've left Iraq. We're done with that war. In 2014, I plan to get out of Afghanistan as well. Our troops will come home. There's no ifs or buts about this. We will leave Afghanistan in 2014. And most importantly, Osama bin Laden, whose plans killed thousands of lives, thousands of American lives, is dead. At home, our economy is recovering. The unemployment rate is slowly creeping downward. This is a vast improvement from 4 years ago. I intend, in my next 4 years as president, if you choose to elect me again, to increase our dependency on ourselves, to reduce our dependency on foreign countries. I plan to give incentives for jobs to be made here and not to export jobs to other countries. We also need to become energy independent. We need to rely less on oil and more on clean energy, on alternative sources of energy, because this is the way of the future. We cannot depend on a finite resource such as oil for much longer. So we need better education to teach our children that will eventually become our workforce about how to do these jobs. How to do these jobs in the future that will advance our country, will improve our infrastructure. We need to add more math and science teachers to improve our education. We need to prepare our country for the future so that our influence does not wane, so that we only stay on a path of betterment and improvement. Mr. Romney's plans intend to send us back to the same conditions that spawned the recession 4 years ago. As president, I will not let that happen. I will make sure healthcare is affordable for all, that we are a safe nation above all else, and that Iran and countries like it will never gain nuclear capability to be a threat to the entire world, and our nation especially.
Thank you, gentlemen, for providing Americans with your assurance of leadership and input of the topics of importance in today's world. I wish you the best of luck in the rest of your campaign. Thank you all for watching. Good night.